Let me introduce our guest speaker for this afternoon and the last session of our Ecological Border Institute. Edith Kauffer is a senior researcher at CIESAS, Centro de Investigaciones y Estudios Superiores en Antropología Social, in Mexico. Forgive my French accent. She was the coordinator of the Researchers Water Network on the border between Mexico, Guatemala, and Belize for 13 years, from 2003 to 2016. She was also co-coordinator of the Comparative Research on Regional Integration and Social Cohesion Consortium Working Group on Management of Strategic Resources, Environment, and Society. She is also Associate Editor of the journal Regions and Sociedad y Ambiente y Coños and in the International of Water Resource Development. She's conducting research on transboundary waters and river basins, water policy and politics, gender and water in southern Mexico, northern Central America, and the Mediterranean, and more. More recently, on sediment extraction and management in Mexico, Central America, and the Rhone River Basin in France. So we are happy to have you, Edith, for this afternoon in our Ecological Border Management Institute. It's good to travel a bit because we were focused on the Canadian-American borders. So we are happy to hear your example from the Central and South America. Thank you very much, Edith, to be here with us.
Good afternoon to everybody. I would like to thank you very much for the invitation. My topic is about waters, borders, and transboundary river basin in Central America, whose water diplomacy. I would like to share with you first a small presentation of the region. I don't know if some of you know Central America and the south of Mexico. Then I would like to speak about waters and borders as a complex relationships. And from this introduction, I would like to define a Central American transboundary river basin, TRBs, and their general characteristics. Then I'm going to define what I mean with water diplomacy, some theoretical insights, and develop some example of Central American TRBs and water diplomacy. And we're going to this big river, that is a Usumacinta River between Mexico and Guatemala in the picture. On the left, you have Mexico, and on the right is Guatemala. So what about Central America and Mexico? We have 7 states in Central America. In the south, Panama, then Costa Rica, Nicaragua, Honduras, El Salvador, Guatemala, and Belize. In these borders, we have historical conflicts during the 19th and at the beginning of the 20th century in all the borders of Central America, excepting the border between Mexico and Belize. You have to know that Belize is a former British colony, and the last state in the region that became independent at the beginning of the 1980s. Today, some of the border have still conflict that are still in force, such as the border between Guatemala and Belize, in particular, speaking about rivers, the Saltstone River border is really conflicted between Guatemala and Belize. And we have also on the border between Nicaragua and Costa Rica another long conflict about diverse topics and issues regarding environment, but also regarding the river on the San Juan River. The problem, the question between Guatemala and Belize is still waiting for a resolution from the International Court of Justice. We worked on field work in 14 TRBs in Central America. You can see on the map 10 of them, and I have to add to this map other transboundary river basin between Mexico, Guatemala, and Belize, where we work along the whole border. So regarding the relations between waters and borders, I would like to mention that we have all over the region different form of interaction between waters and borders. For an example, on the picture on the right, you can see the Ostua River, which is flowing from Guatemala to El Salvador, and on the left, one of the monuments that is located on the bank of the transboundary lake of Gueja in El Salvador. The relations between borders and rivers, in general terms, we can see that we have different types of boundaries. In the picture, you can see the political border, but also we can find some diverse entanglements between the limits of a river basin, the limits of municipalities, and also indigenous boundaries in the different relations between boundaries and rivers. Nevertheless, I would like to focus on waters and political borders. I mean a simple perspective. And in this case, this interaction gives us a first form of entanglements, that is the existence of international rivers. On the map, on the border between Guatemala and Belize, you can see the existence of three rivers that are also the borders. The first one, which is a Suchate River between Mexico and Guatemala. then the Usumacinta River in the middle of the map, and on the east side of the map, on the river between Mexico and Belize. This is a first form of interaction between waters and political borders. From the international law, we call them international rivers, but we can also speak about fluvial borders or river borders. And one of the main issue regarding these international rivers and where is located the borders. And depending on the river, depending on the treaty, depending on the interaction between states, the border can follow the talweg, I mean the deepest channel, or the median line, or the border could be located on one of the riverbank, depending on the situation. Another forms of interaction between waters and border in the region are transboundary water bodies, such as lakes, the Guija Lake between El Salvador and Guatemala, and also another example between Mexico and Guatemala. You have Guatemala on the left and Mexico on the right, which is the international lagoon. And it is an interesting example because you can see the land border, which is clearly defined, and the fluvial border, the riverine border on the lagoon. And to put the balls on the lagoon, Mexico and Guatemala had to negotiate along 1 century, which is an indication of a difficult relation regarding border issues. We have also, along the region, transboundary streams and currents that cross the border, the transboundary rivers, groundwaters, and also wetlands. As you can see in the slide, you have an example of plenty of surface waters when we display all the layers of surface waters in GIS along 13 kilometers borderland between Mexico and Guatemala, which can illustrate what I call a river border or riverbed borders. And then the last form of interaction between rivers and border in the region are the transboundary river basin. I was saying that we have 6 of them between Mexico, Guatemala, and Belize. And along the whole region, we have 24 transboundary river basin that also include the river basin that Belize and Guatemala share with Mexico. One of the first point that I want to mention regarding waters and border is that we are speaking about a perspective that share geography issues, politics, and the history of relation between states. The second point is that when we analyze transboundary river basin, we have to consider shared geography, legal pluralism, from the international law to local rules, water policies and politics, and of course the existence of local stakeholders. At international scale, traditional scholarships on TRBs tend to focus on cooperation, and the majority of studies sustain that cooperation prevails in TRBs. So we are far away from the idea of water wars that is mentioned by the medias and so on. And the scholarship tends to focus on an opposition between conflicts and cooperation, such as a binary perspective on the topic. But my highlights from Central American TRBs focusing and according to my fieldwork in these TRBs, evidence that conflicts and cooperation are deeply entangled, and that we have a multiplicity of interconnected actors at different scales when we are analyzing transboundary river basin. We have stakeholders in parallel, beyond, against, and without or among the states. So in this perspective, the analysis with the length of water diplomacy is really relevant. So we 24 TRBs are located in Central America, including the border with Mexico. It is about 36% of continental Central America. And on the map, you can only see 10 of them, but you can see that we observe an important heterogeneity in size and in geographic configuration in this TRB. In Central America, TRBs are key because, for an example, Guatemala, Belize, and El Salvador have more than 60% of their territory are located in TRBs. The capital city of El Salvador, Honduras, and Nicaragua are also located in TRBs, as well as the 3 bordering states of Chiapas, Tabasco, and Quintana Roo in Mexico, 3 among 4 bordering states of Mexico. And in Mexico, transboundary river basins with Central America have waters that are flowing from Central America. We estimate that about more than 30% of natural flow are coming from Central America in Mexico. So what about water diplomacy? Water diplomacy is sometimes undefined and vague concept. It is not so clear. It is from a think tank origin and from water policies, and its use is recent by researchers. In some cases, it is used as a synonym of transboundary water management, water cooperation, and water governance, and also as a synonym of hydropolitics. So sharing ask an interesting question about water diplomacy. Is it a nirvana concept? Nevertheless, recent literature on water diplomacy points that it is a twofold process. That means that it includes water issues into foreign policy and diplomacy, and that water diplomacy also consists in incorporating foreign policy and diplomacy into transboundary water issues. So you can see the twofold dynamics. Generally, when we speak about water diplomacy, as when we work with the hydropolitics concepts, we tend to focus on a state-centered perspective. Although I was saying in the beginning of my presentation, not only states are included in water diplomacy. And also it is important to mention that not only water diplomacy focused on negotiations. No? In some cases, we can include broader goals of cooperation, conflict resolution, development, peace building. No? But the main idea of today literature on water diplomacy that is interesting to use for Central America is the notion of multi-track diplomacy, where water diplomacy could be included in track one, which is between riparian states, the state-focused perspective, but that consider other tracks. Track two includes other stakeholders, NGOs, academy, business corporation, civil society in general. Track 1.5 include a mix of states and non-state in unofficial settings. And then, which is really important from Central America and for Central America, is track 3, which includes from people to people. For an example, in borderlands or in, on, and throughout transboundary river basin. This is a perspective that belongs to the critical approach of water diplomacy that includes local institutions, local needs, and local stakeholders, and that also consider in the analysis multiple levels. So following Sherin and et al., we can say that water diplomacy is about processes inside a country and to domestic water conflicts and water governance processes at the local and also subnational levels. So this is the main definition that I would like to use for my analysis regarding Central America GRBs. It is also important to mention that Central American GRBs not only share waters. Central America is a continuity of natural resources across borders, beyond political divisions, among the 7 states and also with Mexico. We have to add that it is also a cultural continuum scarcely interrupted by the establishment of the political borders from the 19th century, which is an important and deeper reality when we are analyzing TRBs. We find indigenous people and Afro-descendant in the Caribbean coast of Central America that cross borders, of course, and also poverty, marginality, and lack of access to water and sanitation services are deeply shared between local inhabitants of these TRBs in Central America and in Mexico. I would like also to speak about the international law because it is important. I imagine that yesterday and on Monday, this was probably a topic of the presentation, but for Central America, it is important to refer to the 1997 UNO Convention on the law of non-navigational uses of international water course that entered in force in 2014. 70 years after its adoption by the General Assembly of United Nations. And it is important to say that no Central and North American country has signed and ratified this convention. And regarding the Helsinki Convention on the protection and use of transboundary water courses and international lakes that entered in force in 1996. As you probably know, since 1970s, this convention was open to all UN member states, and last year, Panama was the first Latin American state to accede to this international convention. So it is an interesting point for the whole regions. Now, I would like to go to field work and trying to present some experience of water diplomacy in Central American and Mexican TRBs. The first one is the what I call the flouted and transgressed Guatemala-Mexican border. You can see in the picture that were taken on the Mexico and Guatemala border. They are transboundary systems of sharing water between populations. I have to say that we are speaking about more than 900 kilometers of borders, and 56% are rivers. We have the Suchiate River, which was described in the paper that I share with you, and the problem of the moving borders, and the Usumacinta River that is the biggest river of Mexico and Central America. that also delineates the border between Mexico and Guatemala in this border. And in many of the local villages, people share waters, and in this case, we have a bureaucratical notion of transboundary water passes for the domestic use and human consumption in borderlands between both countries. That was a notion that was built because a conflict occurred between two villages, Mexican and Guatemalan ones, in 27, and this conflict was unsolved. So it goes to the top. So it was a conflict between two communities. So the Mexican municipality received the problem on the Mexican side, but it wasn't a problem that could be resolved by the municipality. The government of the federated the state of Chiapas try to know what about this conflict, but it wasn't part of, it was not possible to resolve the conflict as a federated state. So the conflict went to the Foreign Affairs and to the International Boundary and Water Commission, which is a binational commission between Mexico and Guatemala. Diplomatic negotiation was initiated, but it was impossible to have an agreement, and the conflict was escalating. So we can see that we went from track 3, water diplomacy, to track 1, and without having a solution. The solution, the only agreement that was possible between Mexico and Guatemala was to realize an inventory on the transboundary water space, which was the inventing bureaucratic concept by both states, and to cancel the transboundary water sharing between Mexican and Guatemalan inhabitants from the 1st of January 2009. The existence of local water agreement between Mexico and Guatemala consists in giving water from Guatemalans and receiving electricity, or the possibility to access health services, or to cross the border to go to the main town in Mexico without problems. We are speaking about a really porous border. As you can see on the picture, you can cross from Mexico to Guatemala and from Guatemala to Mexico without there is no crossing point at this part of the border, and the sharing dynamics also depends on the differences of development and services and infrastructure between Mexico and Guatemala. So we can speak about a type of track 3 of water diplomacy. But as you can see regarding the relationship between states, it doesn't really work when a local conflict goes to the foreign affairs ministries. In this case, what we can say is that local stakeholders are cooperating on water issues and on other transboundary issues, but states are not. For an example, in this picture, local inhabitants built the bridge, which is on the Santo Domingo River, which is another river on the border. And this is the only bridge that was built on the whole Usumacinta River basin. And it was built by the people and not by the states. The second example is a situation locating in the Lempa transboundary river basin, which began with conflict, but which was included into a context of 30 years of cooperation in transboundary water issues and environmental water issues through the Trifinio Treaty, which include transboundary integrating water resource management, a transboundary reserve, and many tools to concrete transboundary cooperation, but the mine project was opened in Guatemala. It was a Cerro Blanco mine. And we can see in this example that we have a context of track one water diplomacy, I mean cooperation at state level. And in this context, we have also a sort of multi-track diplomacy, depending on different projects and depending on the different years of cooperation. The Cerro Blanco mine is located on the Guatemalan side of the border, but you have the Ostua River that is flowing from this side to the Guija transboundary lake, and with the opening on the mine provoked a problem of contamination. In this case, in this context of trinational cooperation between states, because it also includes the state of Honduras, because the Lempa River basin is trinational, the problem of the mine created a latent conflict between the governments of Guatemala and El Salvador. The Plan Trifinio, which is the cooperative transboundary organization around the treaty, tried to negotiate, but it was impossible. And on the other side, there was a big conflict between the government of Guatemala and NGOs in the first moment from El Salvador, but then also a conflict between NGOs from Guatemala. So you can see that in this case, we can observe the existence of multi-track diplomacy. It has been a big conflict. In July 2013, the project of the mine was cancelled because of geothermic activity, but later the Bluestone Mining Company bought Cerro Blanco, so it was in 2017. The conflict went bigger, but last year with changes in Guatemala politics, the situation is transforming. So I can't explain with details, but it is an important moment for the situation. Ben, can you tell me how long
Yeah, we could do a break. We could do a break right now, 10 minutes if you want. Or you want to continue?
Yes, because it is the same river basin.
Okay, perfect. Continue.
Okay.
Continue.
Okay. So in the same river basin, we have the small Sumpul in blue river basin. You can see on the map, which is a small river basin upstream in El Salvador. It is shared with Honduras, and in this case, it's interesting because in 2011 we observed a water conflict for a source between agriculture in El Salvador and drinking water in Honduras, which is locating upstream. When we went to field work to know a little more about this conflict, people were saying us that the problem was because they moved the monument which was delineating the border. It was something quite strange, but we have to understand this conflict in relation with the fact that this border is one of the was or has been one of the most difficult in relation both countries, and in this context, the conflict around water was in reality an expression of the conflict around the borders. So in this context, because it is a water conflict that is included also inside the Trifinio cooperative organization and the treaty, it was possible to create a binational river basin, and so we could observe how the conflict was transformed into an interesting form of cooperation. And obviously, in this situation, We can also observe how multi-track water diplomacy, because it included local stakeholders, international cooperation, both states and NGOs, to transit from a water conflict and transform it to cooperation organization around the River Basin Committee. And the last example is relating with the Ocotepeque-Citala aquifer, which is shared by El Salvador and Honduras. It is also located in the big Lempa River basin. And in this case, we can observe that we have, of course, the 1997 Treaty of Trifino, but in 2019, a letter of intention about the aquifer, which is called Atoka aquifer. And in this context, we have the idea of developing integrating water resources management around the transboundary aquifer, and also to work with local stakeholders. So we have, in this case, a route which is going from track one, state-to-state negotiation, to multi-track water diplomacy. And it is an interesting example because it deals with transboundary aquifer, which is a complicated issue, of course, in the region, because it is a region where, regarding surface waters, there are scarce cooperation, and of course, cooperating about transboundary aquifers is something more difficult. So to conclude, I would like to say that when we consider these three examples, in the case of the Otak aquifer, we can see that we are going from track one water diplomacy to multi-track. In the case of the Sumpul River Basin, we also have an example of a multi-track water diplomacy, but which is coming from a conflict, a local transboundary conflict. And then in the case of Cerro Blanco mine, we can observe that despite the multi-track water diplomacy, it is until today an unresolved conflict. So we can see that depending on the issue, on the territory, on the actors, water diplomacy can have different results. When we are analyzing Central American TRB, the perspective of a multi-track water diplomacy is really relevant because it is the possibility to go beyond the statist focus perspective. As you can see, a lot of circumstances, a lot of transboundary relation occur in Central America without the states. So track 2, track 3, and track 1.5 are really relevant to analyze these case studies. And it is important to highlight that water diplomacy is not only for analyzing states or from states and with states, but it enables to integrate in the analysis the different stakeholders that we can encounter during field work. And finally, it is important also to mention that TRBs in Central America are historically complex and are challenging issues because, as I said at the beginning, we have to consider not only water, but also international relation history, politics, policies, and also the geographical configuration that are important. And finally, we have to consider power and how power is working at international level between the big states, such as Mexico, and the smallest states, such as, for an example, the case of Belize.
We have already one question from the room, and I give the floor to Kalpana. Kalpana, you have the floor.
Hi, I'm Kalpana. I'm a PhD student here at University of Victoria and a fellow with Borders and Globalization, just to give you, and I'm working a little bit on transboundary water relations and between Nepal and India primarily, because we've had some very pressing challenges. And yesterday we were talking about these things where we've had multiple treaties between the two countries right now, I'm having a problem addressing it as water sharing because it has never been the case, because India has clearly been dominant, and there's a very asymmetrical relationship between these two countries, and all our major rivers are transboundary rivers. So when you were, and my question and kind of curiosity emerges from the fact that we've never been able to have a transboundary water diplomacy as such in place. We've had these unilateral treaties with India, although both the nations are involved, there is a lot of criticism around these treaties, and especially in terms of construction of barrages and dams on the transboundary rivers that have had very devastating impacts on both sides, not just on one side. However, and I would really like to learn more about these. Therefore, I would like you to elaborate a little more on these track 2 diplomacies, track 3 diplomacies, and also, elaborate a little on who are the actors involved then. How do these actors come together, and how do these things get operationalized, especially in cases where the states have a clear lack of political will to engage in sort of designing a better transboundary water diplomacy, especially in cases where water is becoming a very pressing concern with acute lack of groundwater now. There is lack of water for irrigation. There's lack of drinking water. So we are at the verge of very big conflict in terms of controlling water resources that we have, especially given the drying out of water resources as well. It's really rampant, and the disasters related to water that kind of spans every year. How can these and there is a clear dearth of political will from the states to engage in sort of resolving these issues in the long run. Rather, they're more focused on border control and securitization rather than addressing these pressing problems with the transboundary waters and the issues that are kind of coming up. So if you could elaborate a little more on what, because I was looking for this, like, is there an alternative solution? Because I cannot talk to the states. I do not see myself being able to engage at any level with the states because there is no political will whatsoever in place to kind of wanting to address these issues. So sorry, it's a big ramble.
Thank you for that.
Yes. Okay. Maybe the goal of water diplomacy, when we speak about water diplomacy from a critical perspective, is not having a big treaty, a big river basin organization. Maybe the goal is that the local stakeholders may have access to domestic water. I think that you have to define this goal. And in my cases, I consider that we can have water diplomacy. For an example, sharing water with, as you see, as you could see on the picture, that we are not speaking about a big system, water system, dams, just how to share water by gravity between a country and another one. So in this case, the idea of water diplomacy does not necessarily include that we are going to cooperate between states, because water diplomacy from a critical perspective is also cooperating without the states.
Exactly.
And in this case, in some of the cases of Central America, in Central America, you have states that are you don't have a big state as is in the case of Mexico. There are a lot of NGOs that are giving water to communities, that are opening schools and so on. So the international cooperation, mainly in Guatemala, El Salvador, and Honduras. The case of Costa Rica and Panama are different, and today Nicaragua is another story. But international and national NGOs are working, doing a lot of development projects in rural localities and villages. So I consider that they are the main stakeholders between local necessities and local population, and they are working a lot in water diplomacy. Regarding the will of the states, it depends. For an example, Guatemala Guatemalan official can't bear the idea of transboundary river basin. You can talk about it when you meet with Guatemalan officials. No, it is a forbidden word. No. And when they participate in international meeting about a transboundary river basin or transboundary waters, they are against. Because Guatemala is located upstream with in river basin that it shares with Mexico, with Belize, with Honduras and El Salvador. And so it is an advantage from a geographical perspective. And he doesn't want to avoid pollution, and it has built a doctrine of sovereign river basin. And we can cooperate with Guatemala about river issues, but in Guatemala there are many NGOs that are trying to work at local scale and trying to improve the access to water for domestic use or other small projects. And I consider that this is water diplomacy also. Without the state, and in this case, against the state. But if you go to Costa Rica, the situation is really different. Panama, that today belongs to the Helsinki Convention, and so it depends on the country. So I don't know if my answer is inspiring you, but I try to be more clear in my perspective.
No, thank you so much. If I could follow up.
Continue.
Taking up on other people's time. But do these local level organizations also cooperate at a transboundary level when addressing these issues? And if they do, what are the enabling factors that are helping them be able to cooperate at that transboundary level?
Yes, they receive fundings from international cooperation, and that give them the possibility to cooperate and to be locating on both sides of the border. But in some cases, it wasn't successful, because obviously the state sometimes had the possibility to intervene and to create problems, or to avoid that this cooperation was possible. For an example, between Mexico and Guatemala, it's really difficult, because not only you have Guatemala that doesn't want nothing with transboundary rivers or transboundary cooperation or in gerbis, but you have also the big Mexican state that can't bear the presence of international NGOs, because it's the state, and only the state have the capacity of establishing international relation with other countries. We, as researchers, had problems with the Mexican state regarding our transboundary research with Guatemala and Belize. So, but for an example, when you go to El Salvador, the situation is completely different because there is this idea of cooperation. You have the existence of the Trifinio Treaty, which is trying to promote transboundary activities, transboundary tools, and which is also working with local population, with municipality between El Salvador and also Guatemala. With municipality, it is possible. And also with Honduras, and so it really depends on the state and also on the historical moment. Today, maybe in Guatemala, we are going to see changes because of the new governments. So it really depends. Today, for another example, in Nicaragua, we can do. We as researchers, we can go to Nicaragua to do research on this topic, and we went to do field work in Nicaragua in 2015. It was really difficult because the authoritarian regime which is in place didn't allow these types of investigation.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kalpana. Thank you, Edith. Edith, we have a question from Mathias Ribert from France. Mathias, you have the floor, please.
Yes, thank you. Actually, I think that Edith answered my question. I was wondering if water diplomacy works better if it remains in the hands of local stakeholders and local authorities. But I think I understood that it depends of the state. Like if it's Guatemalan state, the state do not want to cooperate across borders, so the water diplomacy works better when between local authorities. So maybe I will change a little bit my question, because you mentioned the existence of basin committees, and I was wondering how does the governance of those committees work? For example, if it exists on the Guatemalan-Mexican border, and what role does the states play in those committees, if they have a role, or is it more local, in the hands of local authorities, those basin committees? Thank you.
It was impossible to build a river basin committee between Mexico and Guatemala. It was not possible because of both states, because this was a process promoted by an international NGO, and the states didn't want to have their presence. So instead of working at transboundary level, the NGO did a river basin committee close to the border, but only Mexican ones, and also on the other side in Guatemala. In this case, it was not possible, but for an example, the Sumpo River Basin Committee was built between Honduras and El Salvador, also with the funding of an international NGO, and it was a local based river committee, but with the participation of authorities from both countries and local population, the municipalities. But it really depends on the context, but not only on the context, also on the historical moments and of the types of governments, and also it depends on the reason, on the origin of the creation of the river basin committee or commission. I am completely convinced that when a big disaster occurred between Mexico and Guatemala, we are going to do something, and probably both states are going to build something like a type of river basin organization, but without having an enormous problem. I think that it will be impossible to try to build this transboundary cooperation in the case of Mexico and Guatemala. But it is really different with Belize. In the case of Belize and Mexico, you have an asymmetrical relation that is enormous, but the probability of transboundary cooperation are real, because also you have also a big project that is funding by the Central American Cooperation, and you have an important NGO in Mexico, and so on. It's it's complicated to explain this case study, but in this case, I think that the idea and the perspective of cooperation is easier than in the case between Mexico and Guatemala. And this is why the topic of the border between Mexico and Belize is not a problem. Whereas the topic of the border between Guatemala and Mexico is a problem for Guatemala, because Guatemala lost part of its territory, and well, this is not fine for Guatemalan people.
Thank you very much, Edith, for your answer. Thank you very much, Matthias, for your questions. We have a question from the room, from Benno. Benno, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much. Just to give background of me, I really like how you introduced yourself. I'm originally from Germany, but currently here at the center as a research fellow and working on environmental justice, climate security. So water is not explicitly a topic that I have dealt with in the past, but I'm really interested in all these debates about conflict, cooperation with regards to natural resources. My question is, but maybe it's also a comment. I really liked how you framed this, both notions of conflict and cooperations, not in as dichotomies, but as rather a continuum that conflict can evolve into cooperation. And I really think that this is very important to have this way of thinking and to have this paradigm in mind. Nevertheless, I think that it's really easy to say that conflict can evolve into cooperation. And of course, every context is different and every case is different. But nevertheless, I would like to ask you what kind of conditions should be met in order that a conflict can evolve to cooperation, or to put it the other way around, to what extent, or is there a situation in which a conflict is too polarized, is too maybe also violent with different forms of violence, that it becomes unbridgeable, that you cannot change or transition a conflict into some form of water diplomacy in your case. I'd be really interested in if you could reflect a little bit more on this dichotomy in the transition of conflict to cooperation.
Yes, the idea is that not all conflicts are bad and cooperation is good. In some cases, cooperation, when it is an unilateral cooperation, could be bad cooperation. And cooperation can be the origin of conflict. So the idea that conflict and cooperation are entangled, and that conflict may may cause new conflicts. Cooperation may cause also conflicts. When I was doing fieldwork in the Senegal River Basin, it is a big example at international scale regarding transboundary cooperation, and nobody wanted to to give me an answer about an event of a big conflict when Senegal and Mauritania broke diplomatic relations, and this was because the shame of transboundary cooperation caused the conflict at local scale, because it changed the river dynamics because of the dams, and as a result of this cooperation, which is highly recognized at international scale, you have a major conflict between two states. And in this case, cooperation was the origin of a big conflict, because the closure of diplomatic relation between two states is a big conflict. So the idea is that also a conflict may cause conflict that cause conflict, and so on. It really depends on the situation. And in the case of the first case that I presented today, relating with Mexico and Guatemala, you can see that you have a small conflict at local scale, and the conflict go to the foreign affairs, and it was converted into a biggest conflict, because it was impossible to resolve the existence of these transboundary water sharings, and they decided to close all the systems of water sharing between population from Mexico and Guatemala. But these systems were built because people haven't access to domestic water. So fortunately, the results, it was impossible to cut the systems, because it was really difficult for the Mexican government to have funding to build local systems, and I think that the idea of cutting the water sharing was impossible to concrete, but this is an idea of how conflict can become bigger. And this was an impossibility of cooperation in this case, accepting the initial water sharing between local population. So I don't know if you understand my perspective, but it doesn't necessarily include that from a conflict we are going to have a cooperation, because no necessary cooperation is something good for the stakeholders.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Benno, for your question. Thank you very much, Edith. Okay, we have time for the last question from Ben in the room. Okay, Edith? And after that, I conclude the session and the
yes. And in my answer, I would like to just to conclude with another idea that was linked with the practicum. Okay.
Perfect, Edith.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you so much for this wonderful and insightful presentation. I was just trying to just introduce myself briefly. I'm from Ghana. My name is Benjamin Ajakun. I'm with the Indigenous Development Department at the University of Victoria, doing my master's and also an incoming PhD student to the Geography Department. In my master's thesis, I looked at how colonial mapping as a way of boundary demarcations and border making and all that, and also as a tool for everyday governance of as a methodology to understand mapping of indigenous or local community institutions, political systems, and way of governance, and how those things transform, raises questions of belonging and separation from kinship relationship in that instance, and to draw that, to understand the idea of cultural continuum, and also how, in terms of people of Afro descent who happen to be, victims of this colonial mapping, within the context of movement of people, in that regard, to understand how does this, cultural dynamics of different people in terms of people of Afro descent, and then their relationship with indigenous people, drawing from the historical perspective as you talked about, how does this relationship, also bring attention or otherwise in terms of how transboundary water management system have emerged, within this water framework that you are engaging in. Thank you.
In some cases, for an example, between Mexico and Guatemala, the political borders from the nation states were dividing indigenous groups. For an example, the MAM group is divided by the border between Mexico and Guatemala. And there are different circumstances. For an example, there are transboundary relations between, in these cases, the MAM group, but you can also observe that belonging to Guatemala and belonging to Mexico, created historically creating differences between man from Guatemala and man from Mexico, because in the Mexican case you have you had a process of Mexicanization toward this indigenous group. So today we can say that this is the same group. In some cases, so the border creating this difference, but as we are speaking about, you could see in the picture. Do you want to go to Guatemala? You have to cross, or you cross, and you don't have a checking point, or it's easy to go to the other side and to cross the border. And in some cases, families are, in some cases, you have houses that are located one part in Mexico and the other one in Guatemala. So this is a really porous context. We have borders that in some cases do not separate people. And I think that this is why the possibility of water sharing is emerging in such a context, because the political line in some cases is just imaginary. Also, that the fact of being Mexican and being Guatemalan, it isn't the same, of course. So you can observe both processes of a border that doesn't mean nothing, but also a border that means a difference between people who historically could have belonged to the same indigenous group in this case. That are the cases that I know with indigenous population. Regarding Afro-Caribbean groups, I couldn't give you more insights.
Thank you very much, Ben, for your question. Thank you very much, Edith. Edith, you have the floor to conclude the session, if you want.
Yes, I would like to also to mention that was the idea of the practicum, that when we are speaking about transboundary river basin, it is important to remind that not only waters are flowing from a country to another, from a place to another, but that we have to integrate in the analysis and also in the transboundary cooperation, the fact that all with the water are flowing sediments. And this is really important, because today sand is the second more used natural resources in the world. And as the paper of Acne shows us, sand mining in rivers in Asia, in Africa, in Latin America is a common practice, and it has a lot of environmental impact. And also, there are a lot of conflicts around sand mining. There are mafia, there are narco groups who are linked with this business. And so cooperating on waters should include the idea of that we have also to build systems of cooperations around sand and gravels and or around riverine sediments. It is an emerging topic, but it is really, really important to consider sand governance. And also we can propose to think about sand diplomacy and sand governance. That is really important for our rivers and our transboundary river basins.
Thank you very much, Edith, for this conclusion. Thank you very much for sharing all these very interesting examples from Central America. It helped, I think, to understand better the nuances, the political gymnastic between different actors at different levels, and of course, depending the context. I particularly loved the example of the local bridge built by local actors without anything linked with the states or a superior authority. I think it's a good symbol of our session today.